Welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Phil Arno. As a kid growing up in Buffalo, I learned that the city could be a pretty rough place at times. You didn't want to be wandering around alone in areas where the bigger kids were trying to prove how tough they could be. Then I went to high school and started to play football. A 130-something pound kid going up against some real big bruisers. I can remember a coach looking at me and saying I'd be lucky if I didn't end up looking like a pretzel. But I toughed it out and got slapped around pretty good, but loved it so much that I continued that football thing right into college. Surviving that, I was crazy enough to eventually start working in helicopters. And I enjoyed that job every minute, right up to the last minute, when the ride turned into about a 120-foot free fall into an airport taxiway. Well, the lesson is that life can be pretty rough sometimes. But if you really want to know how tough things can get, you might want to try your hand at politics. I look around every election season and think to myself that compared to politicians, I'd look like that little white rabbit scurrying through the weeds after seeing my big German Shepherd. Well, my guest on The Big Picture this week is one such political warrior. Lynne Dixon was a broadcaster for many years. Then she got smart. Now she's an Erie County Legislator. For several years, she's represented District 9 in Erie County, basically Hamburg, Lackawanna, Blaisdell, a portion of South Buffalo. Now Lynne has decided to challenge Mark Poloncarz for the office of Erie County Executive. It's a challenge. Welcome to the show, Lynne.
Thank you, I think. I like your drawing the comparisons with how tough it is growing up. And
It's kind of like a contact sport, I think, politics, especially in this area.
It certainly is. But you know, Phil, I've always said I won't allow politics to change the person that I am, and thus far it hasn't, and I don't plan on changing that. So,
well, you're up against a professional. Mark has been in the business of politics for a long time, and I think he's got a reputation for being a tough competitor. His reputation for performance in office is separate from his reputation as a candidate. So you've got some challenges. What do you see coming down the line now in terms of this campaign? How do you see this thing going?
So I'm not afraid of the hard work. I'm not afraid of getting out into the community, into all the towns and villages and cities that make up Erie County. I'm excited about it. And I think, a lot of it's listening too. It's not always believing that you know more than the other person. You need input from others. And so I am looking forward to a spirited campaign. I certainly am not afraid. I spent 22 years in journalism. This is now my 10th year in the county legislature. I represent a district that is almost 3-to-1 Democrat, so even more of an overlay than Erie County is. And I've had success in the district and have won elections 5 times now, I believe, because I do the work in the community and I look past the party labels.
Well, speaking of party labels, in a world where everything kind of wants to be well-defined, you're neither Republican nor Democrat, you're an independent. Explain to me and the viewers where that fits in. What is an independent in today's world?
So I've always been a registered independent, and it goes back to my days of choosing to be a journalist, and I thought that was the best home for me because I like to look at all sides of every issue, and I think that that's important. I have run in the past, and with support of the Conservative Party, the Republican Party. There are other minor lines through the years that where I've also had a home on the ballot, and so when I approach this, though, I believe that we spend too much. I believe that we don't give taxpayers a break when we can, and that's troubling to me. And so while I don't judge a person based on their political affiliation, because I certainly think that both parties can bring good ideas to the table. A good idea shouldn't be a Republican idea or a Democrat idea. It's just a good idea. But I do run with the support in the past of the Republican and conservative parties because generally speaking, I do believe that government should not be the answer to everything.
Well, we've invited Mark Poloncarz to appear, but I think it's safe to say that his philosophy, as demonstrated by his years in office, his philosophy is that he trusts in government to make a lot of decisions for you, to spend money more effectively than you can spend your money. I mean, he basically, and that's in keeping with the Democrat philosophy. They think that the government is the answer in many ways.
Phil, if you have an extra $5 in your pocket, you know better how to spend that money than I know how to spend it for you. It's your money to spend, you've earned it. You do pay taxes, which do pay for the services that we rely on, whether it's infrastructure improvements, fixing that pothole, whatever the case may be. But generally speaking, you should be allowed to keep more of your money to spend as you see fit, and that helps our local economy when you do. We had an issue this past December where the county executive had sent over to us his proposed budget, his proposed spending plan for 2019. Then the legislature gets their hands on it. They make amendments to that proposed budget. We added some funding to programs like Western New York United, Kids Escaping Drugs. We added funding for roads and infrastructure. But we also made some cuts where, for example, adding additional jobs that we didn't think were necessary. And so we were able to make the necessary cuts to provide a tax levy cut for the first time in over a decade. We had 6 co-sponsors, 6 of the 11 legislators co-sponsored this amendment package. That was on a Thursday or Friday. Come Monday, we lost one of those co-sponsors. So you have to ask why the county executive would be so anxious not to provide a tax cut to residents, and yet then be very anxious to provide a pay raise for himself, which he also did because we had the Citizen Salary Review Commission had proposed a salary increase. The votes were not there, so we did not act on it. And then suddenly the votes were there. So,
well, I guess one of the reasons you might not want a tax cut, as far as I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been told that spending in the county has gone up since he's been in office, $250 million. Is that correct?
Spending has gone way up. When we talk about bringing jobs to Erie County, well, there are a lot more jobs in the Rath building than there were when he took office. Spending has gone up considerably. And I want to point out, too, we also have a fund balance of well over $100 million. So we are not in the position of going back to the red-green budget days where there's no money and you can't buy toilet paper for the Rath building. We have a fund balance of upwards, I believe right now it's at about $120 million. What does that say to you? It says to me that we as a county are taking too much of your money and that you should get some of that money back.
Okay, so now both of you are in county government. You are on different ends of the decision-making process. How would you evaluate the way the county is performing now? You've talked about it a little bit. What would you improve if you were to take over as county executive? What would you change first?
Well, first of all, I think the environment of being hyper-partisan needs to change. I think that the legislature is a separate branch, and right now I think what we see is the county executive's influence, undue influence over the county legislature to the point that we don't have any healthy debate on issues, and that we are not viewed at as equal. And so I think that needs to change. Our infrastructure, roads, that's been a major issue for a long time. I think we need to look at a better way of how we deal with, we have over 1,000 county road miles, which is more than some states. So obviously it's a heavy lift. And with the weather that we have in Western New York, and you think about this winter and the freeze-thaw cycle is going to wreak havoc on the roads. So we need to make more investment, I believe, in our infrastructure. And we really need to get back to just the business of Erie County government. We don't want a county executive who is looking at perhaps another race or looking at national and international politics when there is enough to take care of right here in Erie County.
Well, that's something that he has been doing a lot in terms of his presence in the media. He's been commenting on national politics. He did, as a matter of fact, he did a tweet which the county is being sued for now. Can you comment on that a little bit, that story? So
he was tweeting about a nursing home that had a tragedy there, and the problem is, and herein lies the question: if you're using your personal account and you are tweeting things personally, and your personal opinions about things, but if you are using an account that's considered the account of the office of Erie County Executive or the office of Erie County Legislator, and you are tweeting out things that could negatively impact somebody, that's where the problem is. That's where the issue lies, is that you are confusing, you are very much blurring that line, and there needs to be a fine line. You can, if you want to tweet all day on your personal account, I suppose that's your business, although I do believe that the county executive shouldn't be tweeting all day on their personal account about issues not pertinent to Erie County. But if you are using a government account and you are sending out these tweets, then you put yourself in a very precarious situation.
Well, okay, time flies, especially on this program. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about more specifics, your background and things that he's done in his background. Interesting conversation. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.